Why do you want them to listen to your podcast?
So that when they think about starting a business, they've got the content that is pointing them in the right direction.
That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
The change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Yeah, so the business coach, what sort of benefits have they given you?
Systems.
Yep.
Huge numbers, mindset.
Yep.
Right. So even to the point of, build your top line, delete your bottom line. Even to the point now, there's one of my top line customers. He's about to do a 7-figure upgrade to his house for landscaping.
Yep.
In a very, I'll say, exclusive type area.
Yeah.
And without the business coach, would I've had the confidence to sort of even go and try and accept that sort of work? Now, the landscape's not through me.
Yeah.
But the maintenance is through me.
Yeah.
And when you put your invoice in and you're talking, higher dollar value, I'm not worried about putting my price on that invoice.
Yeah.
Whereas if you sort of had your D&E type clients and you're charging them, let's say, $1,000 for a hedge,
yeah,
you'd be going, oh, are they going to pay it? Are they the type to do this? Are they going to complain?
Yeah.
He expects a standard. That's what we do. That's what he pays.
Yeah.
The systems, things like Sortscape. I use Sortscape as a CRM type thing.
Yep.
He's helped me set that up and work with that.
Awesome.
Even things through from zero. If I don't understand something, he runs me through it with my accountant.
Yeah.
And then to be able to set up what I want from the business.
Yeah.
He applies it in a strategic way, and then we go to the accountant and then say, okay, here's the numbers and what we think.
Yeah.
How does this actually work?
Yeah, okay.
So, now we've got that full circle. It's just about going between the strategies between the two guys and what I want and what I can do personally. Yep. Chase that until the cows come home, and then every time we need to change something, then, you adapt as quick as you can and change it as quick as you can, and you're going.
Yeah, so now if you join up with the Jim's Mowing Network as a franchise, probably the biggest benefit is the systems they have in place already.
And that's huge.
Same if you go and start a McDonald's franchise or something else too. That's all about having a system in place. That's why franchises are so popular.
100%. And once those systems are in place, that's where, when you think about it, when you especially when you try and do it by yourself, you can get so stuck because you're trying to do so many different things and form it into 24 hours of a day.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest risk doing it on your own is that you don't have the education.
No.
You don't know what to look for in the systems, and you don't know what you're measuring.
And I've got strengths and weaknesses, and I'm very open with my weaknesses. And I've learnt through the business coach that to get rid of my weaknesses, to palm them off and incur the cost.
Yeah.
But instead of going, it's a negative, it's costing me money, look at it as an investment because I don't have to do it, but it frees me up to do things that I'm good at.
Yeah.
And then when I'm good at something and I can make money off it, the ROI, it makes it a return instead of being a liability.
Yep.
And once you get your head around that, I've found massive. It's all headspace. And that's why I said that's been what he's taught me it's priceless.
Yeah. And once your mindset changes and adapts to those systems and that way of thinking, then your business changes because you're now looking at things with a business mindset instead of an employee or an individual.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. When you can change that, and it's not as easy as just flick of a switch, but once you can change it and then you start seeing the changes, you've just got to keep going with it.
Yeah.
You can't sort of just go, oh, it's done now. That'll do.
Yeah.
No, because your business changes, seasonally.
That's right.
And you've got to keep up with this. What we're, I'll say fortunate enough. Each season that we get, it's always different.
Yeah.
And you've got to adapt to that, which means that your business has to adapt to that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I had a person reach out to me yesterday and I said, give me a phone call this morning, and had a chat to him for about half an hour. And it was all those sorts of questions about starting a business. And you can tell when somebody's asking questions when they haven't done something before. And it's okay, let's reframe this. Let's look at this from the mindset of making money as a business rather than as an individual.
yep. Because they sort of revert back to, let's call it $30, $40 an hour. And they forget the cost of this, and then they don't think of, but that's going to cost me money. And then like the CRM or the accounting software. Like I've got an accountant and I'm paying for him, but I've also got accounting software.
Yep.
You know, the Sortscape, everything costs you money. Yeah. But you think about those systems that are in place, it's not really a cost.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I can earn, while they're doing their job of, you know, being an accountant, or the software's doing what it's supposed to do and the CRM's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
I'm out working, earning money that allows me to do less on these things.
Yeah.
And, you know, all of a sudden I can be profitable, which is the most important thing.
I've talked about this a couple of times with how you receive payments from your customers, and the amount of time that I have spent chasing a customer who wasn't paying me was ridiculous. So the cost of them not paying, it was massive compared to a 1.2 to 2% credit card surcharge.
Well, this is I don't know if I've got that set up yet. I'd have to look, because I don't dive in. I'm computer illiterate.
Yeah.
I guess from all my accounting stuff, I just let my accountant do what he needs to do, and he just tells me what I need to know.
Yeah.
And he's very good like that.
Yeah.
Because his thing is more bringing that city mentality out here.
Yep.
And yeah, like at the end of the day, you just, to me, having those programs and letting them chase the invoices. So I've got it set up that I know some guys have, like, you know, 24 hours to pay an invoice, 7 days, 2 weeks, monthly, whatever works for their business. But I just let instead of me chasing it, I just let the Xero send out the reminder.
Yeah, okay.
And once they get 2 reminders, then I'm chasing it.
Yeah.
Because if they've forgotten it, you allow the first one because they may have forgotten it, especially businesses. They may have forgotten it. Okay, sweet, you got the second one. Once you get the second one, then you're going to get a phone call.
Yeah, well, if you set your reminders on Xero so that it's 7 days or 14 days or whatever you select for your business, then it does automatically send reminder emails.
Yep. And that's where I think that, you know, once again, that investment into, as an example, Xero, as you said, you're not chasing it. The computer's already set an email up for you.
Yeah.
So whatever it costs to run Xero, you don't have to stress about it. It's already been sent.
I was listening to an American podcast this morning when I was filling in time, shoveling mulch. And I don't know if you've heard of him, John Pajak.
Name rings a bell.
It's Profits with Pajak. And he was talking about having card on file. So when he's got a new customer, he gets their credit card on file. So it's already in the system so that when he invoices the customer, the payment is done. The transaction's done without the customer doing anything.
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of the Green Grind as well.
Yeah.
And you listen to the boys talk, and the guys that they get on, they do similar things. And then I got a mate who's American, very proud American.
Yeah.
And anything that I'm not sure or don't understand from the way they do things, he'll translate it back into the way we do it here.
Yeah.
You know, and the systems and the way they do things over there, it's so much easier than we do it here.
Well, I think one of the things that you hear from the influencers in America is coming from the point of view of having a business that's already got several employees. So if you've got a team of people turning up to do the job, you want that automated payment system in place so that you don't have to worry about your employees collecting payment. You don't have to worry about your system failing. You want to get those customers onto card on file and payment is done as soon as the job's completed.
Yep. And
John Pajak was saying if a customer doesn't want to do card on file and they want to do a bank transfer, then the bank transfer needs to be done before the job commences.
I think was it yourself or was it Luke that had a guy that was mentioned? There was a gentleman somewhere that does payment. All his payments are done prior to service.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I might have been Luke.
Yeah, there was a gentleman on one of the podcasts. There was a gentleman. It was in Australia.
Yeah.
A gentleman that and even on LMCA they were talking about having cards on file and the backlash that people were getting.
Yeah. So I think the biggest comparison there, and comparison's dangerous, is the size of the business. So if you're talking a business with multiple teams going out, then card on file makes a lot of sense. If you're talking about running a business like that with 10 plus employees, then that's completely different to an individual running around doing the work for themselves and asking customers for putting their card on file. And it's going to look different. You can imagine it if you have, and I had this last week, I had Fisher and Paykel come out to do a service on my cooktop. I got no qualms at all about Fisher and Paykel being professional with handling my card.
Yep.
But if it was the local electronic repair van coming around and I don't know who he is and he's asking me for my card, I'd sort of go, who are you?
Well, this is the thing, and this is where I think it comes back to how your business is set up or how you present yourself. Because,
Yeah.
you know, when you present yourself as a professional, you could send out an email. You could, if, you know, with some of my customers being through my aged care, I could take out a form and get the customer to sign that form. But also when they're signing it, because they are elderly, be in contact with one of their, you know, their children or someone that's a bit younger that can make sure that
Yeah.
you have two signatures to make sure that, you know, you're safe with what you're doing. You're backing yourself up legally to say, well, I haven't just scammed someone.
Yeah.
All my legalities are all processed out and have it set up like that.
Yeah. So if you've got a business structure that makes you look like you're running a business rather than doing cashies for beer,
100%.
then there's no problem with going to card on file or prepayment for work.
Yeah. And that's where I think that as much as we're, you know, there's so many things we haven't done that the states are doing, I really do think that is a very promising option, because then you're not, you know, you're always going to get backlash from someone. You can't please everybody. But as long as you deal with the backlash professionally, then card on file isn't a hard thing and it's all automated. So it's a click of these days it's a click of a button.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's not a matter of the person knows your credit card number individually.
Nah.
It's saved in a system.
100%. And you as a even as an owner, you don't really have to see any of their information because it's all privatized and it's saved under a file.
Yeah, that's right. It's encrypted.
Yeah. And if as long as you've got yourself, or once again, as long as you've got your system set up and got yourself backed up, I don't see an issue with it.
Well, if you look at it in Australia with other businesses, do you think twice about having your card on file with your Netflix account?
No. Telstra, Voda, they're all the same thing, aren't they?
You probably have your card on file with your Domino's account too when you order a pizza.
Oh, yeah, I reckon there'd be some people with that. What's that called? Uber Eats.
Yeah. So to do it with a lawn mowing business, all you want to do is prove that your business is legitimate and providing a consistent service, and that is a subscription type service that warrants having card on file.
Yep. And that's where I think it comes back to these things like where you go packages. So many, you know, it's something that I was told from the business coach very early on. And I was like, yeah, no, it's not going to work. Yeah. Well, now I believe so highly in it. And that's what we're trying to bring in is this, you know, full package. And now we're trying to bring in weekly servicing.
Well, you would have heard me talk about this numerous times on interviews, but we'll start diving into your numbers. This is a great point to do it. When I talk about numbers, and I'm not trying to be obnoxious, I'm not trying to big note myself, I don't take on customers that are $1,000 a year. And so I start phrasing it in how much the customer is worth per year. And when you're doing packages, that's great. So when I say that my minimum customer is going to be $50,000 a year, I'm not trying to puff my chest. I'm simply saying that's the type of work that I'm chasing.
And that's where I'm now leading towards, that I can guarantee myself that my final income at the end of the year is going to be ballparked at X dollars. So if you want to only earn 100,000, you can do the $1,000 or $2,000 a year.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that
No.
suits your lifestyle or what you've got or whatever you want to do, go
Yep.
for gold.
Oh, there's definitely a market for jobs that are in that $1,000 to $2,000 a year per customer. Definitely
100%.
there.
And that's the thing, right? But then there's guys like yourself, or I mean, I'd love to be at those, even your numbers. What the where you're at with your numbers, would love it. At the end of the day, at the moment, I'm not quite there yet at 60 odd thousand. But even with the amount of residential and commercial that I've got,
Yeah.
if my average residential can hit, taking away the my aged care
Yeah.
side of it, because all government funded things are, as much as you can sort of, you guaranteed work, you still got to be careful on your price.
Yes.
All my private clients, if I can hit anything around that, let's say 6,000 to 7,000 as a minimum residential, as a minimum, as soon as they start talking, as you're doing mulching, plantation, fertilizing, all that sort of stuff, and then you go hedging on top, you start to hit that $12,000 to $15,000 plus a year.
That's right.
And that's what I'm aiming at now, is going, well, okay, because if your forecast, it can be much greater than what you actually believe in.
So let's put this into perspective for listeners. If you do a 15-minute job, and Chris Guillaume, we were talking 15-minute jobs. So he's got one offsider working with him and he does a 15-minute job and then on to the next 15-minute job. So if you're talking 15-minute jobs, that's going to be different bracket to somebody who's doing 1-hour jobs or half-day jobs. But it's quite reasonable today for you to be chasing residential jobs that have a annual price bracket of $3,000 to $10,000, and that's a wide range, right? But residential jobs range from those 15-minute jobs through to half a day. And if you're doing half a day, I hope you're getting more than $10,000 a year. Just saying.
Wow, that's that's the thing, right? Is that if you can work out what you want as an hourly rate,
yep,
you can work even annually. You can break it down at that top figure and break it down back into what you want as an hourly rate.
Yeah,
or you can push forwards and go, well, okay, I want $100 an hour.
Yeah.
What does that equal at the end of the year? And what opportunity does that give me at the end of the year if you want $100 an hour?
I think if you're doing jobs that are more than $2,000 a year, and I'm going to ask you what you're doing in a minute, but if you're anybody doing more than $2,000 in a year for one customer, you're starting to look at providing more than just a basic service. So you're going from your basic customer, which is just mow, blow, go, to I'm providing a professional finish on their lawn and I'm offering them services outside of just the mowing.
Yep.
So when you say you're targeting customers that are $6,000 or $7,000 a year, you're going to be starting to go into packages rather than just a basic customer.
Yep.
And the alternative thing to consider there is the size of the customers, of course. So if you're doing 200 square meters of lawn there and no gardening, that's completely different to an acreage with lawns and gardens.
And that's the versatility that at the moment that we've got a wide range.
Yeah.
So even when we were at Roost, I've got a property down the road from Roost. It's weekly service, very high end, full treatment, complete acreage, full treatment.
Yeah.
But I've also got properties where even just down the south coast, it's literally a front verge.
Yeah.
My hourly rate would change just for the fact that I'm doing. If I charged, I can't charge. My hourly rate at a front verge is much. The hourly rate on the front verge is much higher.
Yes.
Than what my hourly rate is where I'm at acreage all day long.
Yeah.
But my overheads are much less.
And I've said the same thing. The job where you're there all day, you don't have to charge travel. You don't have to factor that in. You don't have to factor in unbillable hours, because the only unbillable costs with a job where you're there all day is going to be getting there at the start of the day and leaving at the end of the day to go home.
And it's just at worst now, I've got a lot of battery equipment, but even with my lawnmowers and whippersnippers, they're still petrol.
Yeah.
All I'm paying for is the petrol that goes into your zero turn or your push mowers or your whippersnipper.
Yep.
Okay, that's 10 litres, 20 litres. If you're full day mowing, there's 20 litres. Like, okay.
Yeah. Yep.
That's your biggest overhead for the day.
Yeah. So I guess the other factor there is once you're running an employee and you've got a lot of travel time, then you're paying your employee for that travel time. So there's a lot more unbillable costs once you start traveling in between jobs a lot.
Well, that's where it hurts the most, is going down the south coast. And when you've got windscreen time from Camden through to Kiama, which is an hour and a half, and you've got to pay the person, X dollars for that hour and a half.
Yeah.
You've got to make it back.
And this is why when I started my business, I was traveling 10 minutes from home. And when one of my good customers asked me to travel close to an hour from home, I said to them, I said, I'm not doing it unless you're paying for the time I leave to go to your job until the time I get back to my next job.
And that's where we're now at, is working on going, okay, how long does it take? What's the complete cost?
Yeah.
Because it's just me at the moment.
Yep.
What's the complete cost for me to go down
to
my first job in the South Coast?
Yep.
What's the cost of that windscreen time?
Yeah.
Now that's petrol, it's wear and tear on the car, brake pads, look, everything.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got to work that out, because before I've started, I've already spent X dollars before I've started.
Yeah. That's it.
And that's just part of the business. It's part of running the business.
Yeah. Okay, so we've avoided talking about your numbers here. We've mentioned it a little bit, but you're talking about your total customer value for what your target is at the moment, and your rates will change accordingly depending on how big the jobs are and where you're traveling to.
Yep.
So on your own, you're saying you're doing about 100 customers at the moment?
I'm over a week.
Well, I think your regular customers.
Regular customer, I think I'm at I'm probably around that 150 mark.
Yeah, okay.
160 regular, but I still work weekends as well. So
yeah,
that in come summertime, I'm going to be back to bigger days and like Saturdays.
Yep.
I'm trying to keep the Sundays as a family day.
Yeah, cool.
But like I said, mind you, I said there's a mix of commercial where I could be up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. starting, going through. So it's not just I know Chris, I think it was Chris that said he works like 9 till 5 as an example.
Yeah, I think Chris was 9 till 3, I think.
Well, 9 till 3 was it? Yeah. So
yeah.
He's got that slotted time. If that works for him, fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many customers for so long and I've gone up and down in staff, I've just now got to dwindle out the ones that are not really worth hanging on to.
Yep.
To suit the lifestyle in comparison to the want with working.
Yep. Fair enough.
So, at the moment, if I can earn anything in winter, let's say $700-800 a day minimum, I'm okay with that. I'd much prefer to be around that $1,000 to $1,200. Which is, I think, very achievable.
Yeah.
In the summer, you could look at almost doubling that plus.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because it's just chasing these bigger jobs where I can be there all day, charge a day rate. You look at green waste, you look at, fertilisation. So I'm there, I'll charge my day rate.
Yeah.
Plus all these overheads of, fertilising,
yep.
Any sort of chemical treatment.
Yep.
You could be, you're in the thousands and you're only at the one job.
Yeah, that's it.
And then that's weekly. So you could be doing treatments of different sections, different parts. And that really does open up, your potential.
So that's an interesting factor. I've talked about numbers on annual turnover when it comes to running a lawn care business. And I think this is relevant if you're not applying product or selling goods.
Yep.
But once you're applying fertilizer treatments and packages like that for customers where you have some overheads on those jobs, then your annual turnover is then affected by the cost of and the markup on product as well. So it makes it a little bit different to look at what your turnover looks like compared to somebody else's.
Well, and this is the thing, like in Zero as an example, I've got everything broken down. So if we do weed treat, like say glyphosate, right? I've got a subheading to say that cost has gone into to weed spray. So I can work out that I've done $20,000 a year in lawn treatment. I've done $5,000 in fertilization. I've done, $2,000 in spot spraying. I've done $50,000 in hedging and $100,000 in lawn mowing.
Yeah.
Everything's broken down to work out where I'm profitable, and that allows me to say, well, okay, if hedging's more profitable, I chase that.
Yeah.
If I'm doing lawn mowing, well, where's my lawn mowing profitable? I can work it towards that.
Yep.
So I know, like, as an example, when my father-in-law owned it, he was doing, I think he was about 150,000 a year.
Yeah.
We cleaned up well above that in the first year. We did over 200. When I had an employee, my goal was about 330, 340.
Yeah, nice.
And then I was working towards that a year, and then I got rid of them, rid of everybody.
Yeah.
And I've got to rework my numbers to know what my target is that I can do by myself.
Yeah, for sure.
But if I had an employee again, I'd want to be chasing $500,000. Like, that's my goal, is to somehow, with employees, don't get me wrong, having employees, but be able to reach that $500,000 turnover, and then work my percentages off what I want as percentage for profit, markups, and go down from that.
Yep. That makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to say it's quite commendable to have that as a target, because I find other businesses that I talk to that have multiple employees, they start finding a lot of inefficiencies. And you heard Luke Smith talk about this, the problems with a two-man team, and he got a lot of kickback on that one. But you put a two-man team out there compared to a single person, and it's not as efficient. But how do you grow your business if you don't do a two-man team? Because you can't just grow your business by having individuals running around in a truck on their own. It's really hard work.
Yeah, and you're burning them out. Whereas, look, I think that if you can try and find a happy medium where, let's call it Chris as an example, like the last one that you had, where his run is so tight. If you've got streets, even for myself, where I've got streets where I'm doing 7-8 lawns in one street, that can be done. And two guys can do that in an hour and a half. And that's, let's say, 8 lawns. Like, that all of a sudden takes up only an hour and a half of your day. But let's say your average lawn in that street is $80. Half of your income's come through in an hour and a half.
Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas, and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season.
And that allows you the rest of the day to push on, to go, well, okay, well, today might be a big day because I've done that many lawns in an hour and a half.
Yes.
All of a sudden, that day might be your 20 lawns or 25 lawns. But that enables you, and it's profitable because 8 lawns in one street, you don't even have to load up. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, so you tend to have heightened wins and losses when you have multiple staff working for you.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets interesting, because a lot of the businesses I've talked to, you're talking 3 to 6 employees to achieve $500,000.
Well, I think, look, I think you've probably got to have to push at a minimum of 3. But then I think if your numbers are on, also if you've got the jobs to do that, like I said, I've got probably 3 or 4 jobs that are very high paying and frequent servicing.
Yeah.
So, you look at lawn renovations and other options that you can add on to your servicing. If you're doing a lawn renovation for even, let's say, 1,000 squares, a complete lawn renovation for 1,000 squares, that's a big job.
Oh, yeah.
And even if you get only 1 or 2 of those through summer because you're a bit smaller, if you can knock that out the park, let's say, I don't know, let's say you want to charge $5,000 for it.
Yeah.
That includes your soil, your labor, just as a number. That $5,000, what would you normally have to do to earn $5,000?
You'd have to have quite a few customers.
There we go. But if you're aiming and you say, listen, well, spring's here, I can do a lawn renovation, and let's ballpark it. You do four big ones over spring and summer, because that allows you for physical, keep your lawn mowing up.
Yeah.
But you do 4 at $5,000 a hit. That's $20,000 turnover just on renovations.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that's what, 22%, 23% of 100K?
Yeah.
And it's only 4. So you've allowed 4 to 5 days for 20%, bit over 20% of your income that you want to do at 100,000.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, that's where my thing is. That's where your bonus money is.
Yes.
Whereas some of these guys are going, I'm just going to mow. Well, yeah, 100,000 from just mowing is pretty reasonable. But you pop 20,000 on top of that, well, you're already at 120,000, and you've only had to work an extra 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
what I've found, I've referred to the amount that an individual can turn over running solo being anywhere from 80,000. I'd say 80,000 is probably your minimum for a viable solo person that's actually sustainable, and 80,000 turnover would be not great, but they'd be okay. Right. And solo, you go up to 150, 180 is quite achievable solo. And
I think for me, my personal opinion, sorry to interrupt.
No, that's right. Yeah.
For me, 80,000 is a work lifestyle, more on the lifestyle rather than working.
Yeah.
Right. So there's guys out there that might want to work 2-3 days a week, bang out a few hours, high ticketed items, tick and flick, see you later, I'm done.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep. But there'll be people out there that will be doing 80,000 and working themselves to the bone too, because they haven't got their prices sorted out. Their numbers are not where they need to be. Yes. And I know that because I've done it.
Well, that's where I was. My wife used to say to me, you got to send invoices out. You got to say, no, I've just got to keep working so we've got money coming in.
Yeah.
Well, then I started to listen to you guys, and all the podcasts, and I'm going, well, the money that was coming in was the cash. Yeah. By the time I'm sending invoices out, it was too late.
Yep.
So then I started to change that mentality.
Yeah.
Send my invoices out, and I was finding the cash flow was much greater.
Yep.
Which means that my numbers were more on point.
Exactly.
And that's where you get these. Let's say you're working like a donkey for 80K, you're going to go, nah, no thanks. It's just not worth it. That's like kitchen.
That's the low end, right? So $80,000 for somebody who's solo full time. That's pretty much the low end. If you're solo and you're at the high end, my claim is sort of 150 to 180,000, but I know people that do well over 200,000, and I've heard one person up close to 300,000 solo. But let's say 150 to 180 is probably ballpark where people should aim for if they want to do decent turnover solo.
I think that if you can aim for my personal opinion is between 200 to 250 as a solo, that gives you enough money in the bank account with a family.
Yep.
Still have somewhat of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And be content with the work that you're doing. You're not doing, without sounding horrible, bottom dwellers.
Yeah.
The guys that have, dog poo everywhere and trampolines and the headaches.
Yes.
Is it worth it? Look, some customers, possibly. Some of them don't have an option. Like I've got one who's one customer, the anxiety and PTSD.
Yeah.
And going outside is just not an option for him.
Yep.
He won't even answer my phone calls. I have to text message him and wait for a response.
Yeah.
But the price that we've discussed, I'm okay doing that work for him.
Yeah.
And it comes back to just knowing, once again, if you know, the difference for me was always just know your numbers.
Yeah.
When you're doing chemical treatments or fertilization, what's your markup? These guys are doing 10, 20%.
Yeah.
Is
And
20% enough?
I've said this on LMCA countless times, but if you aim for the bottom dwellers, that's what you're going to get. You're going to struggle to get your numbers where you need them to be. But if you're doing good quality work and you end up quoting a job where you've got to pick up dog poo, then quote accordingly.
Well, I actually just had one from a compo claim.
Yeah, and if they're happy to pay for you to pick up dog poo, you're providing a service. Don't sit there and poo-hoo the service, because you don't like picking up dog poo. It's like, well, you can turn the job down, or you can charge accordingly to deal with it.
And that's the thing. Like, when they've said to me, specifically said, like, mow the lawns and pick up dog poo. Yeah. Okay, well, you understand I'm going to charge you to pick up dog poo because not really that keen on it. But as a one-off client who is under certain circumstances due to the compo claim, okay, as long as you understand that there's a charge coming in for, whatever dog they've got, okay, I can't, if it's only one dog and I don't have to walk half a mile to, pick up huge landmines, then, I've done worse things.
Yeah, that's right. I describe some of the work that we do as being an outdoor janitor.
Pretty much. You can put a suit on a goat, it's still a goat.
Yeah. So it really depends what type of work you want to do and how much you're willing to work for. So if you're willing to sell yourself short, there's plenty of people out there willing to pay you nothing.
Well, this is the thing. Like, at the end of the day, if you don't want to pick up the dog poo, don't pick it up. If the customer doesn't pick it up themselves and you don't want to run over it with your lawnmower, don't do it. Like, there's it doesn't need to be put on social media. It's like, I'm in that sense, like, I don't put a lot on socials.
Yep.
And I'm only just starting to sort of get involved in LMCA. I used to sort of sit back and just hide my opinion and, just sort of see what others are saying and doing. But before we started this, there was a gentleman that I discussed with you about an 18-meter hedge.
Yeah.
And there's guys saying, $600 to $800 to cut the hedge. And I'm going, it's 18 meters by a meter deep. The equipment by itself isn't worth $600.
Yeah.
And then you've got to pay for the time that you're there. Yep. And then they're going plus the green waste. Well, you take a meter off that hedge and the weight that's in that hedge at the top is astronomical. So you're going to underquote your hourly rate as a labourer, but then the green waste is going to be more than your labour rate. That's
it. And if you haven't factored it in, you're going to get bitten pretty bad.
Well, this is the thing. That's what I wrote back and said the exact same thing. I said, look, I got bitten. I wasn't horrible, but whereas I like my markups to be X percentage, it wasn't at that. There's no way I could do that. Like, I know my markups are between 30 to 40%.
Yep.
Well, I know a lot of other guys do it at 10 and 20.
Yeah.
But it's what works for your business and it's what works for mine.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that comes into markup there is whether you're transparent with your customers or whether you're making it somewhere else. So a lot of people will be selling themselves short and not putting markup on it. But I did the maths on it one time. And I'm like, okay, I spend an hour on a job. I spend an hour running to the tip and an hour running back again. So that's 3-hour job plus the cost of the tip fee. So I can either charge them 1 hour for the job and then the $45 for the tip fee and sit there scratching my head going, what a waste of a half a day.
Well, we've got tips. So up where I am, the tip charges over $300 per tonne.
Yeah. Well.
But there's a tip down the south coast that, mate, I've come in heavy.
Yeah.
And you're talking a good couple of 100 kilos. And like, I think they're 160 or 190 per tonne.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cheap. Bingo.
Yeah.
But you've got to factor in at that cost. Let's say it's per tonne. Let's say that, you come even at half a tonne. Let's do it close to $200 at half a tonne.
That's it.
But then, as you said, then my hourly rate to drive there and back.
Yep.
But then you got to cost to fact in your fuel. Now,
Yep.
even if it's only a 10 minutes of fuel is 10 minutes of fuel.
That's right.
You know, you've got to calculate your time to go back to the petrol station to fill up. Let's say 10 minutes, 5 minutes to fill up.
Yep.
If it's busy, you got to wait. There's 10 minutes. That's
Yep.
all time. That's windscreen time that you're not getting paid for.
That's right.
You know, and that's why I say where my markups come into it. That's why if I do a quote, I won't charge you for that quote in the sense of an upfront fee.
Yeah.
But in my quote has factored in the time to do the quote, be there at your property, do the research for it, get everything together for you. That's included in the quote. And I think that's where some guys sort of fall short going, I've just do the quote, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's just for a lawnmower, you should be factoring in that you're there for 5-10 minutes, having a chat to them, seeing what they want.
Yes.
Factor in an extra $1 or $2 for that quote.
Yep.
Because that'll pay off.
Yeah. If you analyze it from 3 steps back, you start going, okay, I need to be hitting $180,000 a year, or for you to over $200,000 a year, and in order to do that, I need to be hitting $5,000 a week. So if I'm hitting $5,000 a week, that's going to factor in that I have time in my week to do quotes, not just to be on the tools.
100%. And that's the difference from where I was when I first started to where I am today.
Yeah.
The sheer fact of I started off at 65 an hour because I thought that's what was great. And that was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So 65 an hour. Like I come in from that employee mentality.
Yeah.
Of being a chef working 90-hour weeks, earned you $12 an hour. You were busting your balls for $1,000 a week take home.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm looking at it that I'm in winter. I'm not overly impressed at $1,000 a day, let alone $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
That's my goal is to be, I want it to be $1,000 a day as a minimum. And that's comparing it to last year. I've upgraded.
Yep.
Last year was only $500 a day.
Yep.
Whereas this year it's $800.
Yep.
And then you just keep growing and growing and growing. And that's where I think that, the mindset comes back to saying, well, okay, I want to target that big number.
Yeah.
Because there's a gentleman I listen to and, I'll say a bit of a fanboy about it.
Yep.
Grant Cardone.
Yeah.
10 times rule. 10 times the effort, 10 times the goal.
Yep.
Because even if you aim for $1 million and you only get, let's say, $500,000.
Yep.
If you didn't aim for that, if you only aimed for $500,000, you'd be at $250,000.
Yeah.
So you've already exceeded what you potentially first thought because you're at $500,000 instead of $250,000. Yeah. And that's where implementing that mentality into my business is what sort of helped me since I've been listening to him. Grow, because at the end of the day, when I listen to guys like yourself, guys like Luke, BJ and Ben, you got to charge.
Yeah,
you have to charge. The days of $60 lawnmowers, I can't look unless you're not running. And I don't want to say a proper business, but a more legal business where you're insured, paying your GSTs.
Yep.
Got all your public liabilities up to scratch.
Yep.
All of these overheads. $60 doesn't cut it.
Well, these days, employees want $30 to $40 an hour. So if you're paying your employee $35 an hour and you're charging $60,
well, that's what I said. I think we were at, it was like $72 or $73 an hour, including a car for an employee.
Yeah, just in costs.
And that's before I've even taken a penny for myself to run that employee or to run.
Well,
sorry.
That's right. If you're the employee in that instance and you're going, all right, it costs $75 an hour just to pay the expenses, and then you turn around and quote $66 an hour, what you're actually doing is you're cutting your wage. So you're selling yourself, your labour, at a reduced rate.
And that's where, I think it was Luke that said he's at like 120 or 130.
Yeah.
Now that sounds upper end, but once you start to talk about making margins and profit and like running without being too rude, a proper business,
Yeah.
you are up at $120 an hour.
Yep.
Because you still have to factor in, I've got to replace that machine.
Yeah.
My car still needs to be serviced. So even if your car service, whether you service it yourself or you pay someone,
Yeah.
it's still a cost factor that you've got to factor in. And I think that's where, once you do realise you are up at that 120 mark and you really need to be there to say, and that's where you get to your 200s.
Yeah, that's right.
Even solar, you get to your 200,000 a year. And when you break it down, you go, oh, it sounds like a lot. But once I started doing my costs, 200,000 a year sort of just made me go, oh, that's not enough.
Yeah, that's what you come to, isn't it? You analyse what it's going to cost you to be there.
Yeah.
And are you paying yourself enough for that to make it worthwhile?
And that's where my goal, back when I, don't get me wrong, had employees, was $500,000.
Yeah. No.
Because then that makes sure that I've got X dollars in my account by the end of the year.
Yep.
I've got 3 kids and a wife that, I want to make sure that I'm giving the best that I can give to them.
Yeah.
With employees, I want to make sure that I'm paying them enough that they want to turn up each day, do a good job, and come back tomorrow.
Yep.
They might have family, they might want to have kids, they want to buy a house and all of that.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure you got the work for them and paying them properly to do that. If you've got an expectation, you need to pay to have that expectation. Yeah.
And that's where, going back to what you first started talking about, having those systems in place that makes it easy for you to manage that.
100%. And that's where, like I said, the business comes back to that, where the starting of it with the business coach.
Yeah.
Knowing those numbers, it opened my eyes dramatically, and it really made me change my business real fast. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still working upwards.
Yeah.
But from going from 65 an hour, I was, scared as hell to put it up to 80.
Yeah.
But then I'm still getting, the conversion rate was still so high. You've almost got to do what gyms do and almost chase that no.
Yep.
Because if you're saying yes and you're saying yes, well, then that puts me in line with the bloke who's got the Commodore out the back charging $60.
Yep. Well, if you compare the cheaper end of the market and you go, okay, $80 an hour, cheaper end of the market, and 60 plus GST, cheaper end of the market, right? If you're in that neighborhood and you're quoting those jobs, then what you're going to find is there's virtually no one that's going to say no. You'll still get somebody that will try and haggle you down to 40 or 25. Sure. I can get a school kid for $25 an hour. Why would I pay you 66?
And that's where I say go for it.
But at that point in the market, what you're going to find is that everybody you quote expects you to be cheap. So even the people who can pay twice that and 3 times that and 4 times that, they know that in that street, the competition is all at that $66 or that $80 or $50 or $25. So they're not going to be happy with you charging $120 for them when the neighbour's getting it at 66.
And this is the thing, right? This is where it comes back to when guys are working on that hourly rate. Don't work on your hourly rate when you're lawn mowing, in a sense. Yeah. Work on what that actually, the amount of effort that lawn's going to, the size of that lawn. Because I said, I know for my lawn as a minimum is 77. Yep. If it's a real minimum strip, I might come down depending on location. Yeah. But before I bat an eyelid now, it's 77. It used to be, 40s and 50s. Yeah. Like I had one employee, he come from a bigger company, come to work with me, and he went back up to towards where you are because he wanted to go back into full-time landscaping. Yep. And he said to me, he goes, well, we're working on costs and asking questions, and I'm happy to answer. And I said, one of my customers was $45. And he goes, mate, I'd be charging them 80. Yep. So there's almost 100% markup difference between what I'm charging or was charging to what he thinks reasonable. Yeah. Well, about over 3 years ago, I was chasing $80 minimum. Yep.
But I'm in a different market to you, so it's still not comparable.
No, and that's look, and that's the thing. Like, there's a couple of guys around my area that are ex-greenkeepers and things like that, and they do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
There's a couple of guys that are very overpriced for what they do, and I know a couple of their customers, and that's why they're not their customers anymore.
Yep.
So you've got to try and find that happy medium for the quality of work you do. And if you do high-end work and you are leaving a high-end product, well, you can charge, a smaller lawn $100. Yeah. You
For
can
sure.
have, and if that takes you half an hour, then you're at a $200 hourly rate.
Yep. That's it.
Whereas at 77, to me, if I'm in and out within 20, 25 minutes, 77 is easy go.
Yeah, sure.
Right. But if you're there for longer, then you've got to start looking at, corner blocks. You start to talk 9,900 plus.
Yeah.
For corner blocks. Whereas
That's
guys
it.
might still be doing that at $70 or 77.
Yeah.
And, that's where the hourly rate sort of, you got to be careful between mowing and in comparison to the job to your hourly rate.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think you can be more profitable if you do, in that sense, per job.
Yep.
Over your hourly rate.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.